Good evening and welcome back to British News Today. Tonight we will be discussing many events that have happened this year, 1066. We will be looking back on our three different kings we have had over the time of 12 months. Starting off with the only King Edward. The beloved king died earlier this year, leaving the throne open. When he left, there was no heir to the throne. This is where our second king, the Earl of Wessex, King Harold, comes in. King Harold was not at all related to King Edward. In fact, King Harold told the King's Council that at King Edward's deathbed that Harold was named as King Edward's successor. But he is not the last of the kings this year. The last king, King William, Duke of Normandy, would take the throne after the Battle of Hastings. Today we are lucky to have a special guest on our show. He is an expert on the king lifestyle and he is an active member as the king's personal servant. Here is the one, the only, Osgar. Hello, Osgar. Thanks for being here tonight.
Thank you for having me. It's always a pleasure to be here.
Let's get straight to the topic at hand. Tell me about this year for the servant of kings himself.
Yes, this year is one of my most interesting years for working in the castle. With a total of 3 kings, I can't even keep up with who's in power of Britain.
Tell me about King Edward. What was he like as a king and a human being?
Well, he was a great king and a better person to know. King Edward cared about his kingdom like it was his own son. He was a very religious king. Some would even call him Edward the Confessor. He even went as far to order the building of Westminster Abbey Church in Westminster, England.
Wow, he sounds like a very interesting person. Could you tell me a little bit more of his family?
Well, he didn't have children to take over when he passed away.
So, he didn't have any family that could take over either?
Well, there was his nearest blood relative, Edgar, King of Merrick. At the time, he was too young and barely anyone knew him, so he would not be taken seriously if he was the king.
Interesting. How about King Harold? How did he make it into power?
Harold was said to be Edward's successor. He became king by getting voted in by the King's Council.
Wow, I thought they were somehow related.
No, not at all. He wasn't supposed to be the king, though.
Please explain.
You see, a few years back, Harold ended up in a shipwreck where he ended up being captured. William, yes, that's right, King William offered Harold 2 options. One, he could live in Norman captivity for the rest of his life, or 2, return home and promise to help William become king after Edward's death.
This is new news to our world.
Now Harold is empowered. William should get the throne as promised. That did not happen, which is where the Battle of Hastings comes into play.
I see. I only have one more question for you before you leave. What happens after the battle?
Harold dies in the battle, and with no one in power, William takes what he believes is rightfully his. This takes us right to where we are now.
Well, thank you once again for being on the show tonight.
Thank you for having me once again.
You heard it here, folks. 3 kings and 1 major battle, all in 1 year. This is the British News Today. Signing off. Have a good night, everybody.